Chargers free agency targets. Could potentially the Chargers fill in the massive hole at cornerback with potentially pursuing cornerback Chidobe Awuzie? More on this and stats to prove it all here on Charger Syndicate. What's going on, you guys? Jake Silva here on Charger Syndicate, giving you everything Chargers news. If it is your first time, I encourage you guys to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button to keep you up to date on future shows. And also go watch a few other segments we touched upon here on Charger Syndicate. So the free agency targets, we've been waiting to basically do this now for quite some time. And now we're finally going to be able to tap into it. And so our first free agent target for the LA Chargers who could potentially fit on defense is free agent cornerback Chidobe Awuzie. So Awuzie in his last few years has shown to be a productive defending corner and has also been a part of a really good cornerback group with the Cincinnati Bengals and could definitely prove himself to be a very reliable asset for the Chargers moving forward. Now, the Chargers have not been able to solidify their superstar cornerback position just yet. Now, they still have, at the very least, the building opportunity with Asante Samuel Jr., who we know is probably one of the Chargers' best man-to-man coverage corners, but they want to basically help him to produce and be one of the best superstar corners that the Chargers are hoping to be now for the next few years. So Chidobe Awuzie, going into his career from dating all the way back in 2017 through 20, where he was playing with the Dallas Cowboys, and up to this point from 21 to 23, where he saw more of his productivity with the Cincinnati Bengals. So Awuzie has been known to basically be a really good defending corner and somebody that really is an absolute threat when it comes to the receiving end of things. So Chidobe Awuzie, to kind of go through, in his last few years from 2017 to 2020, he has recorded an interception in all 4 of those years with the Dallas Cowboys. And of course, also had recorded 2 forced fumbles. He had 1 in 17 and 1 in 18, and then also ended up recovering 1 of those from 19 and 2020. So he'd shown that he had some promise to him, but then unfortunately the Dallas Cowboys were not able to retain him, and that's where Chidobe Awuzie found his new home in Cincinnati in 2021, which was also the same team that went to the Super Bowl against the LA Rams. But in those 3 years in Cincinnati, he saw a little bit more of his production start to go up. Now, in this case, in total tackles, he had 64 of them in 2021, where he had 53 solo tackles, 11 assisted, but also had 2 interceptions in that span, where one of them, he had a long one that was 42 yards altogether, but has definitely shown that he could stuff up a lot of wide receivers anytime that he's targeted that way, but is shown to be exactly that kind of pass defender as well. So one of the things that really stood out to me about Chidobe Awuzie when we look at advanced stats and metrics is that his man coverage rate only stood out at least a 44.1 last season, where he was 41st amongst corners in that rate. But his shadow rate from 44.3% was sitting at 27th amongst all corners in the league. So this basically means that he is the kind that will play both a man-to-man coverage type, but also is somebody that shadows in between, basically saying that he's more of a multitask type of defender. So with Awuzie as well, that's been great is that his target rate was 13.4%, which is 27th amongst corners. So the other part of this now, as we get into the productivity part of things, receptions that were allowed were at least 38, where he was at the very least the 38th corner that had allowed those receptions. But the only thing that could tune it down a little bit more is his yards allowed, which was 510, and he was ranked 54th. Now, the only thing that did stand out to me that I was a little bit skeptical about was his yards per receptions allowed, which was 13.4. That stood amongst 75th amongst all those corners. Now, Awuzie could use some improvements from there, but he has definitely shown that he can be that type of corner that can shut down and someone that is also willing to improve in those areas, because allowing at least 13.4 yards per reception is ones that's basically those are automatic first downs from there. So that's something that the Chargers could very much help to improve him. And even having him surrounded with Asante Samuel Jr. could really add in a little bit more into the mix. But the other thing is that his efficiency from man coverage success rate was 69.5%, which was 31st amongst a lot of the corners in the league. So to sum this all up about Chidobe Awuzie, I do think that he's kind of a more of an under the radar and maybe a little bit of an underrated signing that the Chargers could definitely use. I'd say in this case, because the Chargers did make the mistake a few seasons ago of basically giving a lengthy contract to one of the star corners, who turns out he was just basically sitting on his money, had too many of his own personal issues, and then eventually went back to New England. You all know J.C. Jackson. But at least with Chidobe Awuzie, we wouldn't have to worry about it so much because he's not exactly somebody that could potentially break bank with the Chargers. I would say personally, if given the contract opportunity for Chidobe Awuzie, I'd probably give him at least a 2-year contract. The guy's at least 28 years old. We don't know how much of the productivity or as far as the efficiency he might still have. But then again, he is going to be coming into a Jesse Minter style defense as a defensive coordinator. So there may be some things that he might end up instilling for Chidobe Awuzie to be a very productive man coverage corner. Because if you know it, the last few times that the Chargers have had to try to solidify cornerbacks, it has not worked out that well. Outside of Asante Samuel Jr., I mean, Michael Davis, this past year, he's been kind of beaten up a little bit in some of those areas. Plus, two, they've been showing that there's been way too many zone coverage types of plays. There hasn't been enough of man-to-man coverages where they're able to defend the passes and at the same time shake up a little bit more of the opposing receivers as well, to stopping the offense and putting more 3 and outs against their opponents. So I think Chidobe Awuzie could very much fit the bill. I'd say that this type of contract would be about a 2-year contract, and well, about the ballparks, I'd probably say somewhere around 20, 23 million at best, maybe a little bit more, but I wouldn't end up breaking bank from this. I do think Chidobe Awuzie is very productive in those areas and could use some improvements as well. But he is somebody that is an under the radar type of signing that the Chargers would like to have him at least for 2 years, because by that time when he's 30 years old, that's where the Chargers can turn around and maybe go and get themselves, maybe solidify a young corner out of college that they can be able to basically do the little of this rinse and repeat type of thing. So I think adding Chidobe Awuzie could be a good thing for the Chargers moving forward. But the things I'm a little bit skeptical about is that, one, he needs to fix up the amount of yards that he's giving per reception, because 13.4 is basically spelling you're giving away first downs any chance that they get, especially in the same division with Patrick Mahomes, or you're basically playing in the same conference as you've got Josh Allen and potentially Stephon Diggs, or maybe a different receiver. But there are teams in the AFC you just cannot give up this amount for, and even for star receivers that they throw to. Chidobe Awuzie is not a bad signing for me, but I think if we can basically fix those areas alone, then we can definitely say he was worth the right price, and he definitely gave us the amount of time and the amount of effort as well for us to solidify the cornerback position. Appreciate you guys for joining here on this video, and catch more videos here on Chargers Syndicate. Jake Silva signing off. Remember, like, subscribe, and hit the bell button to keep you up to date on more future videos that are yet to come here on Chargers Syndicate. Take care, guys.